Welcome back to the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside the LFA 2020 Male Fighter of the Year, Josh Fremd. We're going to get into the Everything But the Kitchen Sink Awards, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com. Right off the rip, I think that we need to give recognition to a coach who's on the rise. Now, don't get this confused, ladies and gentlemen. This is not who we're doling out Coach of the Year award to. But we're going to give some recognition to a coach right now who is on the rise to eventually putting himself in a position for that particular discussion.
Yeah.
This guy, obviously, he's close to home for us. We've talked about him many a times on this program, but I think it's worthy of the recognition.
Easily worthy of the recognition, Jordan. And I specifically remember not long ago, a year and a half ago, of this particular person giving a speech to the gym and saying that I'm going to be everywhere. Like, in a sense, I'm going to be, I don't know if it's omnipotent or something like that, but it's going to be everywhere. And you see this guy everywhere, in every spectrum, and he's helping out so many people. And I think that as a coach as well, like, you see him everywhere, almost every week. Great advice, great tactics, just a great skill set and mind for the sport. And Jordan, the Rising Coach of the Year.
The Rising Coach of the Year is the James Krause of Glory MMA out there in KC, in a small Midwest gym. He's been able to build that up to have a roster that boasts more than a dozen UFC fighters on it. And that's not even to mention the crop of young talent underneath those guys, like like Mikey England or some of those guys that have just been putting in the work and blazing the trail, trying to get themselves into the next level. He's put so many guys into the UFC over the last year, like guys like David Onama, like. There's something special out there in KC with James Krause, and as we were talking about great follows on social media, I feel like that's one of my favorite follows, just because I get to learn something all the time, and James shares his knowledge about how to help you make money and how to make money in a world where we need just so much more of it now with inflation and all that. I don't know. I just feel like as far as life advice, James Krause is one of the best people that you could follow online. There's no doubt why he's one of the top coaches that's on the rise. Then following that up, we have to talk about the promotion of the year in 2021 outside of the UFC. Josh Fremd, I know that this one is extra special for you right here.
It's a little extra special, and I don't want to go on a big long speech about it because it is a little biased because, I've fought for them a handful of times. And honestly, I just think that outside of the UFC, as a promotion that feeds people to the UFC, I think that this one is just the best. They've had 24 events this year through the COVID pandemic. They've had 14 title fights, one that I was lucky enough to be a part of. We had 10 states in the United States visited, 2 countries. And get this, Jordan, 36 fighters to the UFC this year. And that is just every year kind of doubles almost. Like, they're always sending good people there. And the promotion outside of the UFC that is the LFA, the Legacy Fighting Alliance. Like, it's just the best.
It is. The Legacy Fighting Alliance is just, they've established themselves as the premier organization that feeds the talent into the UFC. But that's also, that was our thoughts just from those particular metrics and statistics out there. But that was also a lot from the people and from the fighters out there that submitted to that right there, because that could have been any organization. That could have been Bellator. That could have been ONE. That could have been Combate. That could have been any of those. But in tandem with what our thoughts were, along with what was sent into us through social media.
All facts, no feelings. You can't argue the numbers.
Now, this one had a little bit of, you could say that there might have been a little bit of feelings for some people.
There was a lot of feelings in this one. This one particularly, there was a lot of feelings.
But that's when you're talking about something that's subjective or that has a little bit of interpretation to it, we're going to talk about the comeback of the year. There were some great comebacks that guys were able to, or guys and girls alike, were able to overcome some early adversity and figure out a way to win. We just had one in the recency with Clay Guida. We've also seen, just a few other examples throughout the year, but the one that we're gonna name, one of James Krause's guys being one of them, and Julian Marquez. He was another guy who had one of the against Maki Patolo, that comeback with the Anaconda choke. But this one right here, I think, based off of the way that the fight started and what he did against who he did it,
and the backgrounds of the fighters themselves, like. There was no way when I was watching this, and I'm a gambling man. This is a gambling show. Like, I had no money on this guy. There's no way. I was like, no way.
Right.
But comeback of the year is Fluffy Hernandez versus Adolfo Rivera.
Yeah, Adolfo
Adolfo
Vieira with the arm in submission, the arm in guillotine, at a UFC 258. That was, I think he said something like, "Hey, coach, can I get a stripe on my blue belt?" And he submitted a world champion black belt.
Yeah.
So, hats off to you there, Fluffy, for pulling that off. That's Max Payne Griffin's teammate, and Max spoke very highly of his guys when he was on the program. So that's only bigger things to be coming for a guy like Fluffy. UFC debut of the year, though. This kid shot out of a cannon like a supernova, and I'm only looking forward to seeing more things that are coming from him. He had to have his most recent fight rescheduled, but we're going to see him in February get back to work. So.
Yeah, and I mean, 7 seconds, you didn't really get to see too much of the kid yet,
No, but, collectively, when we're talking, he has, I think there's at least close to half a dozen fights that are all within the first round that are within, like, the first 2 minutes of the first round.
There's not a lot of footage out there.
Yeah. I mean, this kid is absolutely insane. He's ultra talented. That's the power that we're talking about. We're not talking about the elite wrestling skills that this kid has. The UFC debut of the year for 2021 goes to Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney made that debut against Matt Frivola at UFC 263, and as we mentioned, had that 7-second KO. Our rising prospect of the year in 2021. Now, he made his debut in 2020, but he really started to make the climb and showed that he was absolutely for real in 2021, and that was on one of the biggest cards of the year in terms of eyes on it at UFC 264. Nobody wanted to fight Ryan Hall up until that point.
No.
There was absolutely nobody that wanted to fight Ryan Hall. And our winner here, which is
Ilia Topuria,
put him into the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you about that fight coming up. Like, I was big on Ryan Hall. I still am big on Ryan Hall. I think he's phenomenal on the ground. But I was like, no way that this guy's going to have a chance against Ryan Hall. He went out there and proved me wrong. Whew.
I got the receipts and the bet slips
to
prove that
you do.
I called that finish like that. So, that's an incredible young talent that is only going to continue to rise. I mean, anybody who comes from Georgia can grapple. I don't care what you say. Moving right along. Now, if we're going to talk about a fight of the year outside of the UFC, there's a few that really come to mind that were prominent throughout 2021, and this was one where me and Josh Friend we
almost got into a
5 rounds over it,
because I agree with your opinion. I also agree with my opinion, and it's just one of those things where this is the type of world we live in. There is no participation of trophies. This is just you win or you lose, and we went back and forth, and you made correct points that I was open to accepting, and I was like, yeah, all right, you got a point here, Jordan.
And like I said as well, like I thought it can go either way too, but our fight of the year outside of the UFC in 2021 goes to Sergio Pettis versus Kyoji Horiguchi at Bellator 272.
Phenomenal fight. That was very fun to watch. That's just the name of the sport. Anything can happen.
Yep, anything can happen. And I mean, that was an insane finish, but it was also a calculated finish amidst the chaos. And the thing is if we're looking at the dynamics of that fight as it sits, that was that was one that Sergio Pettis was losing every second of that fight until he wasn't.
Exactly. He was getting whooped on for most of that fight. But in a split second, he saw an opening. He took advantage of the opportunity, And that's how you play the game.
And that's why he's a true champion, I feel like, Josh Fremd, is because even after getting his butt whooped for more than 3 rounds up to that point, he's still within that split-second window of opportunity, had the wherewithal and the awareness to capitalize on what was in front of him. Got to give him the nod. And then,
moving along,
if we are moving along to this one, this one's a tie just because it's so feel good. We can't do this.
This is subjective. Anyone, there's a lot of good ones.
The best post-fight celebration of the year in 2021. And again, it's a tie. We're splitting hairs, and it's for whatever reasons that you may want to choose to go with. Yeah, exactly.
The winners are Bam Bam Shuey and Valerie Laredo.
You can't go wrong with Valerie Laredo dancing.
With either one, drinking a beer out of a shoe.
You can't go wrong with Bam Bam. There.
Can't go wrong.
When we first looked at this category, the one of us popped up with one of these particular people, and they're like, "Ooh, that's a great one." And then the other one is obviously, when we're taking a look at these two people, they're on the complete opposite end of the spectrum optically. So, we're like, okay, well, we can vibe with that on each side here. We can vibe with that on each side. What do you think of the Everything But the Kitchen Sink Awards? Let us know what you think as far as the rest of the awards that you would like to see throughout the remainder of the program. Hit us up on the Go Fast Energy Drink hotline and text line at 303-831-1340. I'm Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside Josh Fremd. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. Get closer to God. Smoking this out as I drive. I threw my hands in the sky, bound to get closer to God.